Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans from a diehard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. Who am I, you may ask? And you're right to ask. Well, I'm an actor, writer, improviser, creative multi-hyphenate, and most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. That's right, folks. The number of times that I went to Numbers in Montrose is incalculable. Well, at least in my youth. Maybe it's just I don't remember. But folks, I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer here in Los Angeles. And now, after that illustrious career, I'm podcasting. You know, that's what happens when you hit 10 years out here in any field. You just start absent-mindedly calling it the 10 instead of I-10, and they ship podcast equipment to your house, and you get a podcast. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project because most media is infuriating. As a diehard long-term fan of the Houston Astros and your other Houston sports teams, here on the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, we are not doom and gloom casual Houston fans with our emotions changing with the wind. We like to be steady, Freddie. We also don't want to be, the national media haters. We're not here just to beat up on our teams and get angry all the time. I don't know why sports fandom has become synonymous with anger and rage and hate. We try to discuss the ins and outs of our teams without too much homerism, without too much anger. And the key word here, of course, is try. I'd like to welcome returning listeners, and also I'd like to welcome all of my new listeners to this mumble fest that I call a podcast, to what my brothers call the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. Shout out my brothers. Shout out Arrested Development fans. I, of course, want to shout out anybody that checks out the blog at spacecadetsports.substack.com, because they're getting the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my pronunciation there. We are recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla, the dog, is here with me. Long-time listeners of the pod know that she may get on mic from time to time. That's right, she's got the hot takes on this podcast. Ya boy, I have the cool, mild takes to help talk you off of that ledge, to help your sports fandom be something that's productive in your life instead of something that takes away from you, or at least feels that way. In this episode of the podcast, we're not just reiterating my mission statement a couple of times. We want to talk about your Houston Astros coming back from the All-Star break and losing a series to the Seattle Mariners. Obviously not what I called for, not what anybody wanted, at least in Houston, or for Houston fans everywhere. But we'll talk a little bit about that series. But most importantly, why bury the lead? Issac Paredes has been injured. He is out. He's on the 10-day IL right now with a hamstring injury. Just when you thought we were safe, just when you thought you could rest, the injury bug sneaks up behind you and bites you. It gets you, guys. So we're going to talk about injuries in this podcast. There is no other way around it. We're going to look at the Astros roster. We're going to look at their injuries. We are going to look a little bit at their schedule. And folks, it's official. It's time for me to bust out the official Space Cadet Sports Houston Astros panic meter this season. Last season, I'm proud of you guys. I really am. Y'all did a good job. Last season, I busted out the panic meter in the first week of the season, and I felt like I had it late. Like, I feel like a lot of people were panicking day one. This season, I felt like people were critical. I don't know if I would say they were panicking. A lot of fans were very critical of the Houston Astros, of their roster. I was critical of their roster too at times. I'm not saying it was unwarranted. I'm just saying that's generally the vibe around the team this season. Last season was a lot of panicking in April. This season was a lot of just criticism and wondering what's going to happen. And now that we're past the All-Star break, now that we're in late July, now that the Astros have been the number one in the West for a while, people are starting to panic because they are losing that lead in the West. Is it time to panic? Folks, we're going to get to that on this podcast. But before we completely do, I, of course, want to say and wish a good day, mates, to all of our listeners out there. Long-term bit on the pod. We're going to get to it today, folks. We're not even going to explain old bits. If you're new, get with it. Use context clues. Try to figure out what the hell it is I'm talking about. We have a lot to talk about, so we're going to try to get to it, folks. I'm obviously trying to speak quickly because I feel like I have a lot to talk about, so I want to get to it. So let's dive in head first here, folks. Let's talk about your Houston Astros losing a series against the Seattle Mariners, and it was not very fun for me. Coming back from the All-Star break, we were very much hoping, me and Carla, the dog here, we were both hoping that the Astros were going to kind of bounce back. That series against Cleveland, the series against Texas, the team was very much limping towards the end of the All-Star break, but obviously they are limping, pun intended. We are not cowards on this podcast. Anytime I say a pun, I intend it. These fools out here saying puns unintended, grow up. What's wrong with you? Why are you bringing humor to people and then being like, oh no, my bad, I didn't mean to make you happy. Grow up. No, but they have very, very much been limping to the this month because they're so injured. So we were hoping they took a needed break, kind of reset, and were able to bounce back here. But they had a tough series against the Seattle Mariners, giving up a lot of runs, kind of being the main story here. They lost the first game 1-6. They lost the second game in late innings in a walk-off. Just kind of ran out of pitchers. Ran out of that game on Saturday. That was a game that Issac Paredes was injured. That game just really felt like they ran out of healthy bodies. It just felt like, at some point these are just the guys we have out there. We're gonna just have to keep going and hope that we could just outlast these Mariners. Alas, they did not, though. They lost that second game too. Lost Issac Paredes. That one was a tough one. It was a tough Saturday night. But luckily on Sunday for that Sunday brunch there, the Astros were able to win 11-3. That was much needed. Obviously, after dropping a couple of games, giving up a lot of runs, having the Astros just really pop off against Brian Wu was very needed. Brian Wu obviously had a lot of success in the first part of that game. The Astros did have a come-from-behind win, so that was good too. Just Taylor Trammell really had himself a game. But before we really get into that, just real quick in that first game, really shout out to Brandon Walter. Brandon Walter's been having a great season. I mentioned in the last podcast that he is probably, going to be on the trade block, a guy like Brandon Walter. So we will see. That might have to be adjusted slightly. We'll definitely talk about the trades, potential trades going forward a little bit at the end of this podcast. But, I think really that game, there's not a lot of fun stuff to talk about. There was 4 hits. Brandon Walter had a pretty good game. The bullpen really kind of gave it up. Obviously, Hector Neris had a tough weekend. Hector Neris has returned with the team. For some of you who might not have been paying attention the last couple of weeks, Hector Neris is back. And he's been struggling. He's had some success this season, and he's also had a lot of trouble this season. And he ran into some trouble this weekend, and it started in this game. And in the Saturday game, obviously, that's the game where Issac Paredes was injured and was taken out of the game. Hector Neris lost that game as well. Just kind of just really towards the end of the game, not really having a lot of pitchers in late innings. It's like, yeah, well, we're going with Neris here. It was a tough game all around in this game. Not to be forgotten here, we all know that I'm a Lance McCullers Jr. stan on this podcast, but Lance McCullers Jr. went 2 2/3 inning, giving up 5 hits, 4 runs, 4 of them earned, 3 walks, and only 1 strikeout in the game against Seattle. It was really tough. Obviously, we love Lance McCullers Jr. on this podcast. I think it's absolutely morally reprehensible that there's anybody that's ever talking that ish on our boy Lance McCullers Jr., Mr. Bury Me in the H. This is a player that means a lot to me personally. I think he should mean a lot to most Astros fans out there. And, I do understand, like a lot, we want our team to be good. We want them to be competitive. When we go through this last couple of weeks, where it's felt like a little bit of a losing streak, people can get a little bit emotional. So let's look at the Houston Astros panic meter. Is it time, I ask the panic meter, is it time to panic about Lance McCullers Jr.? Honestly, last time in the podcast, this whole season we've been very optimistic about Lance. We've been saying we want him to get right. The last couple of weeks we've been saying, well, he really isn't where we want him to be in his return, in his sharpness, in his consistency as a starting pitcher right now. And that is troubling. I know some people are getting in their feelings. They're in their emotions. The Astros aren't winning 162 games. Oh, man, the Astros, how are they going to be good? How is this the golden era? They're not winning every single baseball game. Lance McCullers Jr. needs to leave. DFA him. People have been very critical, being absolutely ridiculous. Luckily, I'm not seeing a bunch of nonsense hate out there, but they're still being a little absurd in my opinion. I think Lance McCullers Jr. has earned the right to have the starts that he's had. However, and here's the big thing, and here's really, I think the different thing from what I've been saying earlier about the Astros like to have a great squad, whether it's in the lineup or in their bullpen or their rotation, where they can sometimes have a little bit of a project player to help get them right. Whether it's Jake Myers, whether it's whether it's Lance McCullers Jr. Hopefully, where they're trying to get him up to snuff while he's in kind of the back end of the rotation, if you will. That changing going forward is really, has he earned a starting spot going past summer? I think August is going to be a month of conversations with the Astros and Lance McCullers Jr. I think something I've said in the past, something that I've said for years, honestly, but when Lance was having health issues, before but back when he was, but like 18, 19 back, I was saying a pitcher like this would be a great relief pitcher. And I feel like it didn't, I'm not saying like I came up with it or anything, but that kind of talk and rumor definitely became more speculative, and a lot of fans have probably gotten behind it. And this season, when Lance McCullers Jr. was coming back, there was a lot of language from the team and McCullers saying that that's not really in the cards, that he's going to be a starting pitcher. But really, it's now at a point where we have, we'll talk about some injuries on the other side of a break here, but, we're at the point where, Christian Javier is throwing some rehabs. Luis Garcia is throwing some rehabs. We have Spencer Getty throwing some rehabs. We have some starting pitchers coming back. So I'm not trying to be like, Lance needs to go. I can't stand watching him pitch another game. The Astros are using the pitchers that they have. They don't have a lot of healthy options. I don't think this is, if we had a healthy amount of starting pitchers, this Lance McCullers Jr. Conversation, this podcast episode might have been a couple of months ago. I think that there are going to be some conversations as to what Lance wants to do, if he wants to transition to the bullpen, or if he wants to figure out how to get more consistent with his starts. I think Lance McCullers Jr. would be a great back end kind of setup man pitcher, 7, 8, 9 inning type guy. He thrives off of competition. I really think that this could, something like this could be good for Lance. But is it something he wants? Is it something that he's open to? And are these things that it looks like the team, is able to have conversations. They had conversations with Jose Altuve about position changes. They've had conversations with Christian Walker about moving him down the lineup. They had to DFA Jose Abreu. This team has had a lot of tough conversations in the past. What is going to happen to Lance McCullers Jr.? I think it will really depend on his consistency in his next couple of starts. And if the consistency isn't there, if he isn't able to eat a lot of innings, and then that's kind of really what it is we're not even looking at how many runs he gives up. We're looking at how he's pitching, if he's able to eat innings and support the bullpen. If he's not able to do that, there might be some changes to Lance McCullers Jr.'s situation for the rest of the season in Houston. And that will just have to remain to be seen. We love Lance. We're rooting him on. I don't think him moving to the bullpen would be a bad thing, but I don't know if it's even an option. I'm a comedian. I'm a super fan. I'm not Superman. I'm a super fan. I want to be clear here. So I don't know. This is all speculative. And with that being said, I'm going to take a quick break. Remind myself I'm not Superman. And we'll be right back to talk more Houston Astros on the other side.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back, folks. Gonna just pluralize everything. It's your host, Paul Salazar Jr. here. We're talking about the Seattle Mariners Houston Astros series from yesterday that just ended. In the last game, the Astros really popped off. With all the sad things we've been talking about, it was really good to see the Astros beat the Mariners in the final game, salvaging the series a little bit, 11-3 with a big win. Lots of hits. We had Christian Walker with a home run. Taylor Trammell really had himself a game going back to Seattle and putting on a show for the Mariners fans, just kind of like, really kind of rubbing it into your ex there from Taylor Trammell. So that was good to see for him. It was a good win for the Astros. The Astros are now 57-42. The Mariners are 53-46. So, in the standings there, the Mariners are now 4 games behind. The Rangers are now at 500, and the Angels are 1 game under 500. The Athletics have, kind of calmed down a little bit from their winning ways in the beginning of the season. So that's the way the AL West shakes down right now. Looking forward, the Astros are going to play the Arizona Diamondbacks starting this evening in Arizona. The Astros have Colton Gordon up to pitch for them. Colton Gordon is 3-2 on the season with a 4.67 ERA and 52 innings pitched. 44 strikeouts with a 1.42 whip. Colton Gordon, obviously, we're going to want to see him throw some strikes. The left-handed pitcher is going to have to, eat some innings, be consistent, and just keep the Astros in position to stay competitive. That's what we're looking for from Colton Gordon in this game. Zach Gallen will be pitching for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's had a little bit of a tough season. He's 7-10 with a 5.40 ERA and 115 innings pitched, 110 strikeouts with a 1.37 whip. So obviously the Astros are going to have to be consistent against this this tough pitcher. Obviously they just played Brian Wu. They have it in themselves to kind of put the hurt on a pitcher, even if it takes a while. But this could be a game that might that the Astros might have to come back from behind to win. With a pitching matchup like that, we're hoping for the Astros hitters to really continue to find that success that they've been finding lately. It's been wild that the Astros, people are frustrated that the Astros haven't been winning that many games, but I'm kind of shocked that this kind of quadruple A team, the Sugarland Space Cowboys here, have been finding ways to hit and finding ways to stay competitive, and it's kind of been the the Astros' strength, the pitching that hasn't exactly been stellar in the past couple of weeks around the All-Star break. So, we're hopeful that the Astros hitters can remain to play above their expectations and keep bringing it. And hopefully the bullpen and the rotation can solidify a little bit. They're just a little taxed. Framber Valdez is pitching in the second game against the Diamondbacks. Framber is 10-4 with a 2.75 ERA and 121 innings pitched, 125 strikeouts and a 1.12 WHIP. With Hunter Brown having a tough game, not really lasting too long, La Grasa, honestly, we're calling for him to almost to pitch a complete game here to help this bullpen out. If he doesn't, there might be a situation where we're calling arms back up and down again to kind of keep arms fresh. The Diamondbacks are pitching Eduardo Rodriguez, who's 3-6 this season with a 5.94 ERA and 80 1/3 of an inning pitched with 90 strikeouts and a 1.67 ERA. 32-year-old left-hander here, hoping that the Astros can do some damage against a lefty in that game. In the third game of the series, the Astros have TBD up to pitch, so we're not, that I believe that might be Brandon Walters' turn in the rotation if they keep it going, unless they mix it up, throw out Gusto out there if they're doing a 6-man or something like that. We shall see. And the Diamondbacks are sending up Brandon Fat. I'm like, oh my gosh, that name always gets me. There's something I always say I have trouble pronouncing names, but it's also like a reading thing. I do understand that. Sometimes I just see a word and it just breaks my brain, and Mr. Fat's name does that to me as well. He is 10-6 on the season with a 4.82 ERA, 106 1/3 innings pitched with 90 strikeouts and a 1.26 WHIP. Definitely he's had a lot. These pitchers, have had some success in the past. They might not have numbers that are scary right now, but they are still to be taken seriously. The Arizona Diamondbacks are 50-50 on the season in a highly competitive division. So this team competes. The Astros are really going to have to bring it and compete with them. This series, obviously after losing a series to Seattle, it's tough to predict once again another winning series, but the Astros need a winning series here. I don't think it'd be the end of the world if they lost this series. I'm not going full panic mode here. I really, I'm always here to tell you, calmate. I really think the Astros, they are going to figure it out. They're going to solidify themselves once they kind of have their roster set a little more. This is tough. I honestly think that this team, in this stretch, I believe this month, I wrote it down and I don't have my notebook here, but they're averaging, around 4.5 runs, just a little over 4.5 runs, I believe, in this stretch. And the fact that they can do this with so many of their major league hitters injured, with this roster kind of decimated by injury, it really shows you that some of these games might have been winnable, but also like Joe Espada is working with he's working with a lot of unknown kind of talent a little bit, if you will, trying to ride the hot hand and figure out who's in better form. It's kind of a little more difficult to get a lineup going nowadays. So, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying this team has been eerily competitive. It's just not always gone their way. There's been some really tough pitching performances. There hasn't been, always stellar hitting with runners in scoring position. But, I really think that if this team could get a little bit more healthy, not even completely healthy, if this team could just start inching their way back to health in the last couple of weeks of July here, we're going to be fine. I really can maintain that the Astros are going to win 90 games this season. I think they have been so competitive. I think the people here that are starting to panic and saying that they have to start flailing. Like now, you're not going to lose the whole season in July. Now, obviously, words like that can come back and bite you because you can lose the division or lose a wild card by a half game or something. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is you can't just rebuild everything because you think you might lose a game. At some point you have to play the hand that you're given, and you have to trust the talent on the team. And this talent has been playing admirably. So I trust that they can figure it out. It might be tough. Some games might be tough, but I think the Astros are going to win this series 2-1. I think it might be some close games, but we know that the Astros are good in close games this season. They have really turned that narrative on its head. So I think, I'm very optimistic about that. But with that being said, something that I am pessimistic about, and something that we really just need to talk about, I probably could have made this, the whole episode is talking about the injuries here. It's great. We have 16 players on the injured list. It's wonderful. Obviously, Issac Paredes getting injured, made room for more infielders. So Shea Whitcomb and John Singleton are now with the team. But like if we're looking at the injuries here, we're looking at Spencer Getty, who's rehabbing. We're looking at JP France, who, Spencer Getty, as per Chandler Rome, will be reporting to AA Corpus Christi this week. JP France is in the Florida Complex League. Luis Garcia is rehabbing and will be joining Single A Fayetteville this week, as per Chandler Rome. Christian Javier is rehabbing in the Florida Complex League as well, as per Chandler Rome is debuting, or was I believe was at his rehab assignment with Corpus. And, then for our position players, we have Yordan Alvarez, still with right hand inflammation. He's traveling with the team, but there's still no timeline for him coming back. We've got Zach DeZenzo, infielder Brandon Rogers, had a gnarly injury while rehabbing in the minor leagues, and has got just kind of like Spencer Getty's injury, just another freak injury. Very unfortunate. Hopefully, wishing the best for all these players, but just, it's unfortunate when you think you're coming back and just have another big injury setback. Jacob Melton is injured in Florida. Sean Dubin is, still working on his strain. He's in Florida, going through a throw-in program. Jeremy Pena is in the Florida Complex League rehabbing. Luis Guillorme is in Florida as well. Pedro Leon is starting hitting, or continuing his hitting and fielding progressions. And Jake Myers is still rehabbing in Houston. He's not in Florida. I worry that guy might be done for the season. Obviously, this is definitely that Amy Winehouse special. They tried to make me go to rehab. I said, oh, no. Folks, the amount of players they have on rehab right now is absolutely ridiculous. I do apologize. I don't even know. Was that my best Amy Winehouse? I don't even know whose voice that was. That might have been Michael McDonald. I don't know who I was singing like it. Look, folks, I don't have a script right now in front of me. We're just going. So you're going to get me singing rehab at you sometimes. But yeah, with that being said, folks, there's so many injuries here. The Astros are depending on so many minor league players or quadruple A type players. Like, when even guys like Brendan Rodgers and Luis Guillorme, who you're hoping to be your veteran guys that can come up and help the team with some solid defense, those guys are even injured. It's tough going. And a couple episodes ago, I really went on my soapbox about the Houston Astros and its medical staff and the narrative around it. I'm frustrated as well, but I think when we look at it, there were, I believe, 2 other teams with 15 players on the IL this season, and there are plenty of other teams with like 14 and I think 13. Like there's so many injuries in baseball. There are so many things going on. I just think we need to take care of these players better at the end of the day. That's the league. That is the team. But I also think while I am saying we should never be callous about players' health, I am all for that. But I do think that some of this is like, if you've ever had a sports injury, if you've ever even broken a bone and you go to a doctor, there are setbacks. Not everybody is the same way. I think sometimes people you think it's a video game and you hear somebody is gone for 10 days and you just expect, well, in 10 days, it's like a Pokemon. They go to the Poke Center and they're fine, right? Not everything in life is that linear. Not everything in life follows a very simplistic storytime fairy tale narrative, folks. Like I do think that, and this is not me saying that the medical staff has done no wrong. I'm saying, yeah, you do need to look at that. You do need to look at how they bring people back from injury. There's all kinds of things, but I'm sure Jim Crane, who has so much money invested in these players, is looking into that, because this is a huge investment. I'm sure you're not just like, whatever Mickey Mouse healthcare organization is fine. I'm sure they are aggressively looking at solutions. And we just call for them to do that. I really think the medical staff in the Houston Astros, more than anything, they need a good PR person. They need to have better press conferences, because honestly, they're getting outdone by Chandler Rome. Chandler Rome is a good writer. He's really good at creating these narratives. He's really good. He's just showing up the the Astros because they have bad press conferences. So I think if they had better PR, it'd be better. But honestly, at the end of the day, all this health stuff is unfortunate. I do think, the Astros are going to look into better solutions here. I think the league needs to look into better solutions. And I think at the end of the day, fans like us just need to calmate just a little bit more. Just not everything is perfect. These injuries are not linear. A lot of these players desperately want to play and get back with the team. The management front office desperately wants these players to play because it makes them look bad when they're not playing. And of course, the medical staff desperately wants these players to play because it's their job. So I just don't understand, this thing of like, nobody's doing a good job, they gotta go. It's really like this Trump mentality that you just fire people whenever things go wrong. I think it's like we should look into having better systems, but like also you got to be a little reasonable here. What is the underlying issue of all these medical problems? They should be investigating it, not just firing people. That's a smarter way to do it. So all I'm saying is I'm pretty sure the Astros are investigating this medical staff to see what they can do to improve. It would be foolish if they weren't. And yeah, there might be some changes at the end of the season. That would not surprise me, folks. That really wouldn't. But I'm just saying, be a little reasonable. The whole point of this podcast, folks, is that the world is so crazy. There are so many battles. You have to wake up every day and fight. There are so many bad things in this world. Shouldn't your baseball team and your football team and your basketball team bring you joy? You shouldn't wake up and just be angry about sports all the time. And I think there's some people that this is a displacement. They transfer their aggression. They're angry about things in their real life, and instead of being angry about them and doing anything about real life, real world problems, they do stuff about their baseball problems. They go on the keyboards and they start getting angry and being a keyboard warrior. Folks, even that anger isn't good. I am trying to help us be less angry as sports fans. So I'm just saying, calmate just a little bit. Let's try to take a step back and be reasonable and hope that this team, if they need to clean house, I'm sure they'll clean house. But that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate all the listens that we get. Thank you for listening. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me. We are but a humble and small podcast, and we only go as far as our listenership takes us. We're supported by listeners like you. So please share with a Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the end. Give us that 5-star rating. Please check us out on Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can get every podcast, our articles, and meme dumps. You can get it emailed to you for free with just putting your email address in there. Or if you're like me, you're not the email type guy, you don't want the email subscription, you get the Substack app, search Space Cadet Sports, click that you want notifications, you get notifications on your phone instead. Definitely check that out. Reach out to us on social media. Let us know your takes. Let us know how calm you are, or if you're getting really upset about these injuries. I know they're upsetting. But let's talk reasonably. How frustrated are you right now? I do want to get into it. I'm not trying to just chastise you. Let me know how you feel on social media at Space Cadet Sports. On Instagram and at spacecadetsports.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Obviously, I'm trying to say let's talk, so be reasonable. If you're gonna come crazy, I don't mind blocking people, so don't come at me crazy. If you want to leave me a voicemail, you can leave it at speakpipe.com/spacecadetsports. Let me know what you think. I'll respond to you on the voice notes there too. Folks, if you're like me, you gotten this far and you like me, for me, oh thanks, I'm blushing. If you want more weird jokes from me, more memes, you can find me on social media making jokes, meme, art, podcasts, and so much more at Paul Salazar Jr. PaulSalazarJR.net, because I'm nothing but net. Go to that website. You can find my merch, like this aircraft carrier Cam Smith hat. That's one way you can support me and support the podcast. Go get that merch or subscribe on that Substack for me. Check out the website. Check me out on social media. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston
Born and raised
H-Town Rebels.